On today's show, Minnesota Bound celebrates parks. Up first, these volunteers work to protect trails. They do so by picking one prickly plant at a time.
It's tough stuff, it's everywhere.
We explore a Northwoods destination that makes Paul Bunyan proud and tracking the tiniest of critters in a regional park prairie.
Minnesota Bound, presented by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems.
Hi everybody, Bill and I welcome you to Minnesota Bound.
Today's episode is all about our state and regional parks.
Up first, we're all familiar with Minnesota's Adopt a Highway signs, a program where volunteers pick up litter to keep our roadsides looking good.
But it turns out you can do the same thing at Three Rivers Park District. That's where we pick up the story. Get it?
Good one.
Minnesotans making a difference. Presented by the Minnesota Lottery. I'm in.
Three Rivers Park District loves guests. The more the merrier, right? Well, in Murphy Hanrahan Woods, not all are welcome. Exactly why on a weekend morning, volunteers gear up to fight.
Barry, you have a question?
We would not be able to do anywhere near what we can get done with the help of our volunteers.
Missy Anderson leads this crew off the park's trail and under the forest canopy, right here, to a spot where guests become guardians of the woods.
Okay, so when you're pulling buckthorn, you want to make sure to get all of the roots out and kind of gently pull out so you get all those roots. Get the soil off the roots because, believe it or not, it just takes a little bit of soil on the roots for this thing to keep growing. I would say as an invasive species coordinator, buckthorn is one of the worst invasives that we deal with because it does really have the potential to change the woods into something else.
Buckthorn, a shrub native to Europe, first introduced in North America back in the mid-1800s. Settlers brought it here to landscape. Turns out buckthorn loves Minnesota soil and weather. The plant now outcompetes most Minnesota natives.
Birds will feed on that, like robins and cedar waxwings. They'll feed on those berries, and the berry has something in it that makes the birds purge. And so they'll fly to another place, they'll deposit the seeds.
The end result looks like this. Plants carpet parts of the forest floor. Today the workers pull young patches, easy to get to in soft soil.
These are all native plants that you want to give a chance because you want the buckthorn to overrun.
We're finding some natives under here, Cheryl. We got nannyberry,
Oh yeah, I know.
ash, we had hackberry, and
Chokecherry.
It's tough stuff, it's everywhere.
Exactly why the work proved so important, and exactly why Three Rivers started hanging signs.
The Adopted Woodlot program started in 2014, and that's when we started adopting woodlots. This one was adopted in 2014.
And now we're up to 24 areas in 7 different parks.
It's a lot like the state's Adopt a Highway program, except in Three Rivers parks. Individuals and groups sign up to care for a patch of woods or even a park trail.
Some of the volunteers are individuals, some are families, some are school groups, and some are groups like the Minnesota Rovers.
The Rovers, these folks.
Generally, the group does a lot of outdoor activities like climbing, paddling, bicycling. It has a membership of about 500 people, and part of its mission includes conservation efforts.
Just why Lisa McIntyre signed up.
Wanted to help with the effort of conserving some of these natural areas. The Twin Cities is growing out to these parks and they're surrounded by urban area, and it makes it all the more important to preserve. And I see parts of the park I'd never see because this is all off trail.
Oh, and the work seems to be, well, working.
Here's a white oak. This is great to see. I love it. It's neat.
The rovers report removing 95% of this area's mature buckthorn and more than half of the really young plants.
The Minnesota rovers actually help with invasive species management at every level. They help with prevention, they help with early detection, they help with control, and they've even helped with restoration.
Plus, these green thumbs get a payoff too.
You find some species that are kind of unusual. In this case, a couple years ago, I found a species of plant. It's called elliptic shinleaf. Apparently, it has not been found in any other Three Rivers Park District parks. And here's one of the plants right here, and this one still has the flower stalk.
The Minnesota Rovers, people with real passion for preservation in our parks.
That's our focus, so that we preserve these woods into the future so that everybody can come out to Three Rivers Parks and see these beautiful forests. It's a game changer in the woods.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems, Star Bank, All Seasons Garage Door, and by the Minnesota DNR.
Up next, we head north to take a walk in the park near Bemidji. The rumor has it the park boundary is said to be stamped by Paul Bunyan's footprint.
Most visitors come away with kind of a bit of wilderness in an area where there's a lot of city amenities, but they also like the setting of the remoteness. I think the park is a little bit of a wilderness oasis. Lake Bemidji State Park is located on the northeast shore of Lake Bemidji, about 7 miles from the town of Bemidji, which is the first city on the Mississippi River. The park started in 1923 as only 300 acres and has grown to over 1,700 acres. The lake would be the most noticed feature and most used. Virtually all the people that come to the park spend some time down by the lake, maybe swimming or boating, fishing. There's really 2 good beaches on Lake Bemidji, and the park has the nicest one. It is a shallow beach, so there is good swimming on Lake Bemidji. We've got a nice boat access where people can put their boat in a protected marina. Probably the most popular lake activity is fishing. Camping is a very popular activity that people do. Also biking. Paul Bunyan State Trail is a paved trail that stretches from Lake Bemidji State Park all the way down to Crow Wing State Park south of Brainerd. And it's been a very popular trail in the central part of Minnesota. The park has about 12 miles of hiking trail. Most of them are earthen. The boardwalk is one of the more attractive features in the park. That's our premier trail. Along the boardwalk are some things we'll take a look at, and at the end is Big Bog Lake. The boardwalk is a unique opportunity for people to get out into a bog. This is a real good time of the year because the bog is in bloom. The showy lady slipper is pretty close to its peak. We also have another orchid called grass pink. We have a couple plants that are carnivorous. Up here on the right is the leaf flower sundew. With its sticky little tentacles, captures an insect and holds it on the leaf. Enzymes are secreted and the insect is digested. This is the leaf of pitcher plant, which captures rainwater, but then attracts an insect by the red lines to go down into the leaf where it eventually drowns and then is digested. Okay, we've reached the end of the boardwalk, and we're at Big Bog Lake, as we refer to it. It's actually a very shallow pond. Well, if you head this way, we're going to go to the overlook on Rocky Point Trail. Probably the most prominent view is up on Rocky Point, which overlooks the lake. It's a very popular spot for people to come and see the whole lake. Across the lake, we're seeing the city of Bemidji. The local legend has it that if you look carefully, this is Paul Bunyan's foot, his heel and his big toe. They say many of the lakes are a result of Paul and Babe walking through the soft swamps of northern Minnesota. Sunsets are real pretty because it sets right to the west of Rocky Point. I guess the telling thing for me is that I've enjoyed the park for 31 years as the naturalist, and I still find stuff that's intriguing to me.
Still ahead, find out where to fish in parks without worrying about mosquitoes. But first, protecting bumblebees. It's the big project on this little prairie.
Closed captioning provided by Treasure Island Resort and Casino.
Up next, Three Rivers Park District has a most unusual research project going. One that is aimed at protecting Minnesota's native bumblebees. To see is to believe. Wind-blown prairies. They once covered a third of the entire state of Minnesota. Most are now long gone. Long ago erased by both plow and people. Those who still protect prairies see great value in all of this. And if you listen hard enough, you can hear it too.
There's got to be some big fuzzy bumblebees out here.
Crow-Hassan Regional Park researchers find themselves buzzing over bees these days.
So essentially we're just looking for the biggest ones possible.
Specifically,
so that one, good-sized one.
Minnesota's native bumblebees.
So bumblebees are declining North America, Europe, Asia. We've already been seeing some decline in certain species.
Including right here in Minnesota, home to 23 of North America's 48 native species of bumblebees.
The bumblebees need three things. They need the flowering plants for the pollen and nectar. They need a nesting site, and then they also need an overwintering site.
Angela Grill's team wants to figure out exactly where bumblebees nest. A needle in a haystack proposition in a prairie this big. So they dial up a little help.
Catching them is the fun, easy part.
Workers first collect bumblebees.
She's already wiggling away from me.
And prep them to carry a new load.
We already weighed the radio and her, and for this small worker, the radio is going to be about 80% of her weight. So quite a hefty load for her.
That is a tiny, tiny battery-powered radio transmitter.
Today we're putting some radios on bumblebees so that we can figure out where they go in the prairie, where they have their nest sites, how far they move from the nest sites in order to collect pollen to feed the larvae at the nest. One of the reasons it's important to figure out what the bumblebees are doing is to help us better manage our prairie, to know if we're missing any components to making it a healthy habitat for the bumblebees.
And maybe, just maybe, help the population of bees grow.
There you go. Okay, got her.
Angela first removes the bee's back hair.
Bumblebees are very fuzzy, so if we were to attach this radio without the hair removed, she would pull it off. Biggest worry is just not getting any glue on her wings.
She places the transmitter right into place. Fragile work on a critter so small.
And I'm trying to put it directly back behind here in between the wings.
Yep.
So I can smell the pollen. The first time took about over an hour, just because we were so new at it and we weren't really sure what method we wanted to use.
Once the bee goes free, the team makes sure it can move and fly without too much trouble. Now, they try and track that little transmitter.
We can hear them, I think these are up to 100 yards maybe, maximum.
So we'll probably try to spread out with the radios, and hopefully whichever direction it goes, we'll be able to follow it.
Park staff will tell you they don't have all the answers yet.
Within Minnesota, we're the first ones that have put radios on bumblebees. They've been used in a couple of other places in the United States, but yeah, it is kind of a cool thing to be the first one in town to do it.
So the next time you see a prairie, think of the bees and remember this new little game of cat and mouse.
Did you know you can catch all the stories behind the stories on the Minnesota Bound podcast? You can find it anywhere you listen to other podcasts.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Oreo Cookies and Ritz Snacks, Hewitt Docks, Lifts and Pontoon Lakes, Coors Light, and by Totem Resorts, the premier destination for world-class fishing.
The last glacier to slide into Minnesota a few eons ago flattened everything but this corner. Today we call it bluff country.
And I think any Minnesotan that has visited the Blufflands realizes what a unique place it is. It's only 3% of Minnesota that looks like this.
Way back in 1919, Minnesotans decided to preserve a big chunk of these bluffs and valleys. They called it Whitewater State Park.
I think many Minnesotans dropped here in the middle of the Whitewater Valley and asked, are you in Minnesota? They would say no, because it is such a small area, and yet it's an area that's so rich in its life. In fact, it has more plants and animals, the richest biodiversity of any landscape area in Minnesota.
And what's not here in the Whitewater Valley is, well, some kind of Minnesota miracle.
Surprised about the no mosquito thing. That usually gets people's attention when you tell them there isn't any mosquitoes down here. If you see one or two or hear them buzzing in your ear, that's pretty unusual.
I have to admit that one evening I did see 3. Generally, though, you don't see mosquitoes. And the reason, again, it relates to the geologic history. Being that we don't have standing water. What rain falls either percolates through the soil and bedrock into the groundwater or flows into the rivers and is gone. So we don't have the standing water which mosquitoes need to breed in. In fact, I've been here 27 years now and have yet to use insect repellent.
Come on, fellas.
What's a trout angler to do with no bugs to swat?
Well, I'm kind of hoping to catch some rainbow or some brown trout. They stock rainbows in here. The browns tend to be more natural. They reproduce in this stream. When you get a strike, that little indicator thing can just be a real subtle little tick. It's real, oh, there we go. Just a really beautiful area. There's high bluffs and low valleys. The trout fishing is just incredible.
Incredible sums it up pretty good, and that goes for this thing. It's called the Elba Tower. Back in the 1930s, it was used to spot forest fires. Today, it's just part of exploring a park, all 132 steps.
We're still learning here in the Blufflands as to what really is sustainable land use. You know, how can we farm? How can we harvest timber? How can we do what we need to do here and yet at the same time keep the land healthy, the river healthy, and of course this all impacts the Mississippi River a short ways downstream.
It's just a great area of the state. It's just beautiful. There's a lot of different diversity, a lot of opportunities to do different things.
Oh, not that time. As state parks go, the Whitewater isn't easy to forget. It's where the trout bite and the mosquitoes don't.
Not a one. I haven't even heard one in my ear yet.
no bugs. I think that is my favorite part of the park.
No doubt, and I can attest, we've fished in that area and they never seem to be around. Go figure.
Go figure. Well, that about does it for us. We'll see you back here next week.
In the meantime, don't forget to introduce a kid to the great outdoors.
Eat some bugs.
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433.